Time for another board game review, and this time we have the game Too Many Bones Undertow. This was sent to me by Chip Theory Games, and is designed by Adam Carlson and Josh Carlson. So this is a standalone expansion. It's two-player to Too Many Bones, which I have not reviewed on the channel. I have played it before. So this is going to kind of encompass my thoughts on Too Many Bones in general, and then I'll also touch on what this offers, which there's some new enemies and things, but... Forgot to close some lids in there. That'll be fun to clean up later. Welcome to Undertow, the standalone expansion to the award-winning Too Many Bones, featuring two brand new gear locks, all new encounters, tyrants, baddies, and the same brain-bending cooperative challenges and clever dice mechanics as the original. Undertow is the ideal entry point to the world of Daylore, as well as a massive expansion for owners of the original game. You'll need every bit of your wits and a bit of luck to survive this journey. Don't get pulled under. Let me show you how to play. So because I have not reviewed Too Many Bones base game on this channel, this will serve as a way to play. I'm going to teach you how to play Too Many Bones. I will also go over some of the differences, but they're honestly not too much different from the base game. But basically, in Too Many Bones, you are trying to defeat a tyrant. You can pick the tyrant at the beginning of the game, like, for example, the Goblin Queen. And the Goblin Queen will have different requirements to fight her, and also different types of monsters to fight. But before you can fight her, you got to get enough progress points. And also you need to strengthen up your gear lock, which is your character here, so that you can hone their stats and skills with training points in preparation for that battle. So each day of your adventure, you go through 4 game phases. First, you rotate your day counter. In this first turn, you don't do it, but this will keep track of what day it is throughout the adventure. So if you go to a new day, you go to a new day. Then you draw an encounter card. Encounter cards are randomly determined at the start of the game. They all have different things. For example, this is one of the basic ones. Eat or retreat. I'm not going to read all this, but it's basically, you're going to have to fight. Or no, you can either keep moving, and everyone gets a dex stat, or take a few minutes to get a lay of the land before proceeding and turn over the top baddie chip in each baddie stack. You would also get some loot if you made that decision. So they all offer different sort of choices. Sometimes it changes the type of monsters you fight. Like in this case, you'd fight Kreln. In this one, you would fight a mech. And you have to, it's like a choose your own adventure type of encounter each day. Usually an encounter will have some sort of fight. And if you succeed, you will get a reward, which may include loot, training points, progress points, etc. And then there's a recovery phase where you can trade loot and trove loot within your party. And then there's individual options of like healing, or searching for better loot, or scouting. And scouting lets you use a D6 to reveal what enemies are coming up next in the various chip piles. Each gear lock has 4 stats. They also come with a very complicated sheet of how they work. This is all their dice icons. This is all their details, all their backup plan breakdowns, strats. It's a lot. They have 4 stats: health, dexterity, attack, and defense. Whenever you receive training points from encounters, that would be this symbol down here. I don't know if that'll focus. Yeah, those two. Well, anyway, those two down there. That lets you increase your stats. A training point gives you 1 training attempt for any stat. If it's successful, you get to place a die in that slot or modify it. Health is obviously just how much HP you have. If you lose your last HP, you are knocked out. These always succeed, so you can use a point and boost it up to 4. Dexterity is the maximum number of dice you can roll on a turn. These training attempts always succeed, so I can increase my dexterity to 4 and roll 4 dice on a turn. Attack is how many attack dice you roll when you damage your target. These you actually have to do an attempt. But yeah, when you each attack die costs 1 dex to roll in battle, and your attack set is the number of attack dice you have available to roll each turn. Attack dice look like this. When you roll them, they do damage, or you get bones. Bones can be placed in your backup plan, and these can be used later for activating abilities. Now, whenever you want to use a training point to increase your attack, you have to roll your current attack stat. And if no bones are rolled, you are successful. So currently my attack stat is 2. So no bones, that means I can increase in attack. Same thing goes with defense. To increase my defense with a training point, I have to roll for it. If I do, I can boost it. Defense dice are used. They cost 1 dexterity to roll in battle. And these can be used, placed in active slots to defend yourself. So if I roll for, say, these dice, that would block 3 damage. Each gear lock starts with an innate talent. And for example, Duster here has Shadow Dweller, and also innate +1 is Shadow Caster. If you use 6 bones, you can upgrade your ability for the rest of the game. Shadow Dweller means that Duster may start on any position on the battle mat, and she also starts with Nightshade's any die and Chip. Nightshade is her wolf friend. No, these are not focusing, but there it is. There are also melee, ranged, and melee ranged forms. Melee can only attack adjacent, ranged can target anyone, melee ranged have their own instructions. When you use your dice, you put them in your exhausted area, which is the left of your mat. For example, here's Duster's Dagger dice. This can do what is called Drawing Blood, which lets you place bleed effects on targets. But once they are used, they are exhausted to the side. Now, instead of using your training points for stats, you can use them to get these new stat die. So as you get them, you'll place them in the correct spot. To get throwing knives, I would need to do Duster's Dagger first. That's what the arrows mean. You can unlock those as you go. Now, I mentioned you can store bones that you roll in these BP slots. And what happens is you can spend them to do effects. So like, for example, Pack Mentality, 1 bone, move Duster/Nightshade to a position adjacent to the other. Duster may also switch targets now. 2 bones is Backstab, stab a baddie that's adjacent to both Duster and Nightshade for 2 damage. They all have different sort of perks, so that's makes up for rolling the bones in battle. Now let's talk about baddie chips. Baddie chips have a whole bunch of information on them. They have HP, they've got initiative, which tells you where they start on the initiative meter. They have attack forms. They've got, I don't need to go through all of this, but they have creature types, keywords, defense, attack. You can see there. Along with what they target, if they add extra baddies, a whole lot of different pieces of information. Now, some new stuff in Undertow, I believe, are the crown and the mech. So let me just go through these for those who have only played the base game. Crown are special types of enemies that are used in specific encounters. They have this little fish symbol on them. And so these are water-based monsters. Whenever a crown enters the mat, you roll a d6 and place it on a crown starting position. And these guys don't move like conventional bad guys. They cannot leave their starting positions intentionally, effectively requiring them to stay in the water. At the start of a turn, if it has no opposing unit to target, it will move to the next starting position up in the sequence. So this would move up to 4. At that point, if it has an opposing unit to target, it will attack as normal. Otherwise, it will attack an adjacent raft position with no wreckage. So if it's a successful attack roll, you put a wreckage chip on there. Show it's getting, destroyed. If a crown is ever forced onto the raft, it can move only 1 position toward the nearest starting position, and then it can go back to attacking. During water battles, you are not allowed to go into the crown starting positions. If you are ever outside the raft, you must spend 1 + 1 dex to board the raft and climb back on. And a wreckage is used to represent a position on the raft that has been destroyed. It can only be destroyed by a crown. When it is wrecked, place 1 here. And these cost +1 dex for party members to move onto. If a 5th wreckage chip is needed, the battle is over. You lose. So yeah, that's another. These guys are all about destroying the raft so that you just end the fight. Mechs are another new type of enemy in Undertow. They usually have some added benefits, like some sort of immunities, and these, you put them on mech starting positions. In this case, the outside, again, these outside positions. And these behave very much like conventional bad guys. They may move through any available position on the mat. So yeah, it's just a different type of enemy. Now going back to the Tyrant card, this tells you how many progress points you need to challenge a Tyrant. So in this case, it's 6 progress points to even fight her. The back of the card has some setup rules. I'm not going to go into that right now. And they usually have their own special chip and special die for fighting. So let's go through a fight. So it's either going to be a water battle or a land battle, depending on the encounter. And then this track up here lets you track whose turn it is. So let me move this down here so you can kind of get a slightly better look. This die is the round die. It tells you what round it is. If after round 5, then we go into the fatigue where all units will start losing HP. So there's a sort of time limit for the battles. Baddies will have their initiative on their chips, like this would be an initiative 4. And how you track them is, for example, if this guy with initiative 4 was in the blue lane, you would then take the blue die and then you would set it to the correct spot. So in this case, like that, initiative 4 with the blue die. And this guy's a melee, so he'll go there. The players will take their unique die and roll them, and that'll determine theirs. In this case, it looks like it's 3 and 3. Because baddies can move around, to keep track of which one is which for initiative, you place these tracker chips underneath to show that that's them. Also, this guy has 9 HP. You can use the chips. Crown or mech ones, in this case mech, would be on the sides. I'm not going to use a mech for this particular example. And then the gear locks, you place them on the appropriate positions. There may also be obstacles and wreckage chips for this example here. I'm not going to bring them out. Now, before you even do the fight, again, I'm just following this rule book, man, and I don't know why they do it in this order. But anyway, you have to actually set up a battle queue. I'm not going to go through it because it's really not interesting. I just need to show you how this combat works. But basically, you take the current day, you multiply it by the number of gear locks in your party, and then you draw baddies equal to the baddie points for the encounter. The different baddies, like for example, this is like a 20-point baddie, or this is like a 3-point baddie. So you need to like make a stack of enemies for the fight, and then they'll sort of enter the board in that order. So if you want to hit an enemy, you gotta use your dexterity to move adjacent. You can use up that many, whatever your dexterity is, that many spaces to move around and be adjacent to them. Ranged gear locks can shoot from anywhere. Select your target, in this case this guy. He's got bleed and dodge. We're gonna pretend he doesn't have anything crazy right now, just whatever. And then you have to decide which dice you're gonna roll. Your dexterity you haven't used up for movement will determine how many you can roll. Let's say I didn't move, so I can roll 4 dice with my current dexterity. The dice you can choose can be attack, defense, or skills. So let's say I roll 3 attack and 1 defense. And let's resolve the roll. Okay. So that's gonna be a whole bunch of damage and a defense. Now, as a gear lock, you don't need to use the results of dice. So you always have the option to not use them. So you deal your damage to your target. In this case, it'd be 5 damage. And then resolve any other effects. And then place any dice you want to use into open active slots down here. I don't have any backup stuff I want to use, so there's that. Baddies on their turn react in a similar way. They move towards opposing units, use skills, roll their dice along with any inactive defense dice they have, and also roll attack. And it's very similar. Now, if you ever get knocked out, your gear lock chip and any die come off the mat immediately. If your entire party gets knocked out, that's a wipe and the battle immediately ends. You don't get rewards, but you get to keep going to the recovery phase, which lets you heal and stuff. Now, getting victories in battle can get you loot cards. as well as training points, which I mentioned before. That's how you level up. So you might get something like a Muckalabash Pipe. Roll a d6, apply result to any lock or of equal or lesser value that any gear lock is working on. Bypass that lock for free. That's for lock picking, which is an option you have for more valuable loot. Spider's Silk Salve. Place 1 health chip on this card during recovery phase each day. Then you can use this to heal yourself, but then you discard it. Tar, Sap, and Twine. During a water battle on your turn, remove up to 3 wreckage chips from positions that are either adjacent to or at your existing position. During a land battle, place an obstacle chip in an open adjacent position. This is a single-use card as well. So those are some items you can get. Lock picking, I'm not going to go into entirely all the details of. You may not even get trove loot. There's also a lot of variable things. I don't need to necessarily share everything just for a review. But there are a lot of little things, like you can play like dangerous darts. You can do, there's other types of things. Now at its core, the die rolling, if you're just using attack die and defense die, is not too complicated. Like if I have active defense die, I can use them to block damage. However, where the game gets really complex is the different skills, along with all the opponent's keywords. For example, this guy, and there's a whole list of keywords here. This guy has bleed, which lets you, if he attacks you, you do bleed damage. So you take 1 true damage at the start of each turn if you are bleeding. He also has dodge, which means his HP cannot be reduced with attack dice. Oh, so this guy, I mean, he is a really difficult enemy. You would need to use your skills, not your attack dice, to fight this guy, which is a real bummer. Let me just pull another one out at random. This guy has swap. At the end of this unit's turn, it will switch positions with the closest strongest opposing unit. Disruption. You advance the round counter die to bleeding at the end of the round, and that's using a. Some of them also have bone abilities. And as you can see, there are so many different skills they can have, and they all have different effects, which is why this sheet is very useful for that. There's a lockpicking guide here, a whole bunch of stuff on that reference sheet. So I'm not going to show you too much of the encounter cards, because that's kind of what people don't want spoiled. But let's go into the characters themselves, because I didn't really show a ton of their skills. So Duster here, there's 2 characters, Duster and Stanza. Duster, his whole thing is about damage and this wolf Nightshade. So how Duster works, well, it depends on how you use her. She has a lot of assassin dice you can recruit. These let you do stuff like bleed. You can do throwing knife, which lets you do non-adjacent enemies. Vibroblade lets you add extra damage to crown or mech types. And by the way, I mentioned this, but all of these dice have their own special custom dice for the skills. Duster also has Survivalist, which lets you do... actually, it tells you everything back here. Well, actually, this is a whole different thing. Survivalist dice, these let you heal. You can also feign death, and where if you would lose your last HP, you can set your HP to 2 and place untargetable on yourself. There's different dice like Gadgeteer. I'm not going to go through all of these, but these are about, sort of like using tech. Wolfsbane is about powering up your Nightshade companion, because Nightshade is its own unit in battle. You can power it up and have it do things. There's also consumables. These are stuff you can use to do different effects. And yeah, there's a whole detailed sheet of how to use Duster. Stanza is a lot more complicated. She is all about sort of doing songs. So how songs work are you have focus. Every dice has amount of focus stanza games when rolling the dice and using the result. If you use it, you place it in the prep area with that number upright. The section of the song is the specific part it's on, and the amount of focus required to progress to this section. They all have different effects. Like you can do buffs, you can do crowd control. There's status effects. Again, pretty complicated, much more complicated than Duster. But there's a lot of flexibility in terms of what you can do.
And yeah, you can use your bones to increase die. Yeah, I'm not going to necessarily spend all this time explaining exactly how she works, because that's what that is for. But I will say, much more complicated character than Duster, which for some people might be a good thing, and for some people might be not so good of a thing. That's pretty much it. You go through, you do encounters, you use training points to increase your stats, get more skills, get more dice, roll the dice, try to survive encounters and get rewards until you get enough progress points. Progress points are points you get for different encounters. And then you fight the tyrant, and then it's a final battle. There's also loot and things I mentioned and other factors, but that's the basics of Too Many Bones.
So this one is interesting because I played the original Too Many Bones years ago with a friend, and I had a good time with it. But that was with someone who knew how everything worked, could basically run the game smoothly. I didn't have to manage anything, and there were no issues. So with those memories, I went into this expecting to like it just as much, and in all truthfulness, this was a slog. There's still good stuff here, and you can basically take this, like I said, as a review of the core mechanics of Too Many Bones as well, because I haven't reviewed it on the channel. But, reminder, this is a standalone 2-player expansion. So let's start with something that I found pretty agonizing in another chip theory game, Cloudspire. The rules and rulebooks are just an unwelcoming, dense slog. There is so much fiddliness that I'm not sure if it's worth it for what is otherwise a fun but basic battle game. Giving someone a character sheet where you have all these paragraphs and paragraphs of text just to understand how to play the character. Like, what's her face? The wolf character is not that hard, but Stanza is just it's so much homework you have to do. And for some players, that's a plus. They're like, oh yeah, give me that. I love complex systems. I love all these things. I don't love these things. That's my personal preference. For me, it's overly complex and fiddly and annoying. Now, fans of this game and other complex games might, based off my past reviews, go, hey, Sungwon, do you like any complex games? I'll be completely honest. A complex game of this level of complexity needs to have, for me, some sort of elegance to it, a lack of fiddliness, or it's got to be amazingly fun to justify the nitty-gritty. I can wade through long rule books, complex systems, as long as after a certain point it clicks and I understand what I'm doing, or it's just that fun where I'm like, you know what? I don't mind the fiddliness because it's just a rewarding, fun experience. This game doesn't reach there for me, and it's, again, with these games, these chip theory games, there's so many little keywords, and, unless it's this, and but watch out, you can't do it this. You gotta constantly look up a fucking dictionary of, terms. It's so tiring. I just gotta say, as I get older, I find myself just disliking fiddliness and complexity for the sake of complexity. But let's talk about the good stuff. As always, component-wise, presentation-wise, it's super amazing quality. The mats, the chips, the cards are really nice feel. The dice are all custom. It looks great. And also, the actual dice themselves, since they're the focus of the game, are really fun to get more skill dice as you level up and roll them all and collect the bones and trigger perks. Some of the dice are a little too complicated for my taste, but at its core, watching your leveling go up, getting more skills, it's fun. It is a fun, rewarding experience. I was disappointed at how lackluster the encounters felt. A lot of them are lackluster, some of them are just annoying or completely unfair. Maybe I'm just spoiled by other narrative games I've been playing lately. I'm really getting into Sleeping Gods, and I've enjoyed other games that have these sort of events and encounters. These didn't feel that fun to me. They felt boring at best, annoying at worst. And then actual combat itself, besides the leveling up of dice and getting more dice, it's still fiddly, and it just, there's so much. Oh, you know, like I mentioned, this works this way, unless, oh, is it this type of enemy or this keyword? I don't like keeping track of this stuff. If I have a guy, like just a little guy who can just do it all for me, then I might enjoy it more. But if I'm the one who has to manage it, don't like doing it at all. I also found that I feel like the game, in terms of difficulty, is a pretty steady climb, I feel. But then sometimes the tyrant just fucking destroys you. Like, it's like, okay, it's pretty good, pretty hard, pretty not hard, pretty challenging. You're dead, and there's nothing you can do about it. I know people are going to say, oh, just get good. I still don't feel like it should be that big of a jump. It feels like just a lackluster end. It doesn't feel exciting. It just feels like, oh, there's nothing we can do. Okay, I guess we're done. But even difficulty aside, I don't actually care about high difficulty or dying if I felt that the core gameplay was worth the hassle. Like, if I'm having a really great time and then I get destroyed at the end, I don't care. But for my gaming tastes, like Cloudspire, this is a competently made game. And I see where the audience base is. It's for people who love digging into these complex mechanics and memorizing all these keywords. I don't like doing that. And if I have to do all this homework, all this going through a really atrociously sorted rulebook and reading these extensive character sheets, then the gameplay has gotta fucking be amazing. It's gotta blow my mind. And instead, I think it's pretty good. I think it's all this work and all this effort, and now I'm getting through a lot of slog for what is a alright, pretty decent, fun little battle game, but like Cloudspire, not game-changing for me. So, just by me going through the game, you will know if you like this game. If you like complex games like this, or Cloudspire, or, you know, Mage Knight, a game I reviewed years ago, but I always compare games like this too, where there's a lot to keep track of and remember. You know, it's a game that's meant to be played over and over and over again. But I don't like the game enough to play it 20 times to memorize all this stuff. For me, it's like a, I don't know, 7 or 6 out of 10 game layered with all this complexity I don't care about. So yeah, if you like that kind of game, or if you like, you know, the original game, hey, this offers more characters and more, you know, enemies and encounters and stuff, so all power to you. But if you've never played Too Many Bones before, this will give you a sense of whether you like it or not. For me, I think I liked it when I played it, but it's like because I played it with an expert, now I'm like, I'm kind of lukewarm on it now.